I never thought I would be the woman telling this story. My name is Clara, I'm 34, and I took a perfectly good marriage. A life, really. And I shattered it with what I truly believed was a brilliant idea. Looking back is a special kind of torture. I see myself then, so confident and so stupid, and I can't believe I thought Liam would ever go for it. But that's what happens, isn't it? You let your daydreams run the show, and you forget that real life has consequences. Liam and I had been together for 10 years, married for 7. He was my rock, my foundation, the kind of man who pays the bills a week early and remembers to get your car's oil changed. He was a pharmacist, methodical, precise, dependable, not exactly a firework display, but he was my quiet, steady flame, and he was mine. Then there was Julian. I knew Julian from my university days. Long before Liam, there was always this this electrical current in the air between us. He was a freelance photographer, all sharp angles and restless energy. He saw the world in ways I only dreamed of. Julian was the life I didn't choose, the what if that never quite faded. We all started hanging out again about a year ago, when he moved back to Chicago. It was Liam, bless his unsuspecting heart, who suggested we all grab drinks that first time. If only he knew, if only I knew the avalanche he was setting in motion. I watched them shake hands that night, a weird ritual of sizing each other up, the stable provider versus the wandering artist. Liam was polite, of course. He was always polite, but I could see something flicker in his eyes. He picked up on it. Women always think men don't notice these things. They do. Between us, between you and me, I saw the way Julian looked at me when Liam went to the bar to get another round. That look didn't need words. It was a novel in a single glance. We hung out maybe 5 or 6 times after that. Casual things. Backyard barbecues at a mutual friend's place, watching a game at a sports bar, nothing scandalous. But in each of those times, there were moments. Julian would say something that referenced a stupid inside joke from 10 years ago, and I'd find myself laughing just a little too loud. Or he'd be helping me in the kitchen, and he'd stand just an inch too close. The air would get thick, heavy. Nothing happened. I want to be clear about that. I'm not a cheater. But the possibility of it hung in the air like expensive perfume. I started thinking about him more, comparing. The way Liam would talk about compound pharmacies, and the way Julian would talk about capturing the light over a Moroccan market at dawn. I would imagine scenarios. Just daydreaming, I told myself. Everyone does it. It's harmless. But then my phone started staying a little closer to me. I added a new password to my photo album. I'd snap my laptop shut when Liam walked into the room. Nothing inappropriate was happening. Seriously. Just friendly banter. Playful texts. But I knew Liam wouldn't understand. He wouldn't get the late night you up? Messages that were totally innocent. Well, mostly innocent. The idea. The big, life-altering, catastrophic idea. It came to me on a Tuesday night. I'd had a little too much wine and was scrolling through some online magazine. An article about modern relationships, polyamory, ethical non-monogamy. People were doing this. Evolved, emotionally intelligent people. They were adding a third person to their relationship. It wasn't about cheating, it was about expanding. And I thought, why not? Why should I have to choose? Why choose between the beautiful stability of Liam and the electric excitement of Julian when I could have both? I know what you're thinking. This woman is delusional, and maybe I was. But in the hazy, wine-fueled logic of that night, it made perfect, beautiful sense. Liam grounds me. Julian elevates me. Everyone is happy. Liam would be the primary, of course. The husband. The anchor. The foundation of our life. Julian would just be a supplement. A beautiful, thrilling bonus feature. I planned it all in my head. Liam was always so reasonable. He was a man of logic. He would see the logic in this. We were adults. We could handle it. Our friend Chelsea knew someone who was in a similar arrangement, and their Instagram looked like a constant vacation. Besides, it wasn't like I was asking for much. Just a small expansion. A little wiggle room in the fine print of our vows. So, that Friday night, I put on the silk dress Liam loved. I made his favorite meal, braised short ribs. I opened a bottle of the good Cabernet, and I waited for the perfect moment to burn my world to the ground. Looking back, I realize I never once, not for a single second, considered that he might say no. let alone what actually happened. But that's getting ahead of myself. I remember thinking, as I poured his second glass of wine, that I was a genius, a pioneer of my own happiness. I was about to solve all my problems at once, have my cake and eat it too. God, I was such an idiot. I'd rehearsed it in the shower that morning, a dozen times. The words had to be casual, breezy, like this was just a fun, spontaneous idea I'd been toying with, not some obsessive fantasy I'd been building in my mind for months. I practiced my facial expressions in the bathroom mirror while Liam was still asleep. Not too eager, not too serious, just curious, open-minded. The table looked perfect, candles flickering, the good china we never used. The rich, dark aroma of the short ribs filled our small apartment. I'd even put on full makeup for a Friday night at home, which should have been his first red flag. Liam came in from the pharmacy, looking tired. He had that bone-deep exhaustion he always carried after a long week. He gave me that soft, weary smile and asked, "What's all this for? Do I need an occasion to make a nice dinner for my husband?" I purred, all innocence. He kissed my cheek. It smelled of antiseptic and paper. He went to shower. I topped off my wine glass. Liquid courage. Dinner went exactly as planned. I let him talk about his day, some issue with a prescription, a difficult customer. I nodded and made all the right noises, but my mind was a million miles away, rehearsing my lines one last time. He was mid-story when I decided. It was time. "Honey," I interrupted, reaching for his hand across the table. His skin was warm, familiar. "I've been thinking about us." His fork paused halfway to his mouth. "That sounds serious." "No, not serious, serious. Just, I've been thinking about how we can keep things exciting. You know? After 10 years together." His expression softened immediately. Relief washed over his face. The poor, sweet man. He probably thought I was about to suggest a vacation to Italy, or maybe some new lingerie. If only. "I've been reading," I began, squeezing his hand, trying to look both thoughtful and seductive at the same time. "About how some couples open things up a bit. Not like seeing other people separately, but together." Liam put his fork down. The soft clink of metal on ceramic was the loudest sound in the room. "What exactly are you suggesting, Clara?" And that's when I just said it. No more clever lead-up. No more buttering him up. "What would you think about inviting someone else into our relationship, romantically?" The silence that followed wasn't just an absence of sound. It was a physical presence. It was heavy. It pressed down on me, on the candles, on the perfectly cooked meal. Miles stared at me. He didn't look angry. He didn't look hurt. He looked like I had just started speaking in a language he'd never heard before. "You want to have a threesome," he finally said. His voice was unnervingly calm. "No. Well, I mean, maybe eventually, but that's not what this is about." I rushed to clarify, my words tumbling over each other. "I mean a real relationship. The three of us. Together." I tried to sound casual, like I was suggesting we try a new brand of coffee. He took a long, slow drink of water. He placed the glass back on the table with surgical precision. "Do you have someone specific in mind?" he asked. "Or is this just a hypothetical exploration?" My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. "Actually, yes," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I was thinking, maybe Julian." The way Liam froze. It was instantaneous. A statue of a man. His posture didn't change, but all the life, all the warmth, drained out of him. I saw it happen. But I kept talking, like a fool. The words spilled out, faster and faster, as his expression grew darker, colder. "He already knows both of us, and we all get along so well, and I just think it could be something really special." "Are you sleeping with him?" Liam cut me off. His voice was deadly quiet. "What? No. God. No, Liam. I would never cheat on you." And I was telling the truth. Technically. We hadn't slept together. We had just texted, and flirted, and dreamed. "But you want to," he said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. "It's not about wanting to sleep with someone else," I lied. "It's about expanding our love, trying something new, together." Liam just looked at me for a long, long time. I could feel him seeing right through me, through all the cheap justifications and the wine-fueled bravery. Then he pushed his chair back, stood up. "I need some time to think," he said. And he went to our bedroom and closed the door. I sat there, alone at the beautiful table, with the cooling food and the dying candles. And in my deluded mind, I counted it as a win. At least he didn't immediately say no. The next morning, the air in our apartment was thick with unspoken words. I tried to snuggle up to him in bed, to act like everything was normal, like I hadn't detonated a bomb in the middle of our lives the night before. He didn't push me away, but he was stiff. A plank of wood. He rolled over to face me, his eyes clear and tired. "How long have you had feelings for Julian?" he asked, his voice flat. I should have denied it. I should have laughed it off. Instead, I kissed his forehead and whispered, "It doesn't change how I feel about you." Which wasn't an answer at all, was it? Liam didn't come home from work that day. 5 o'clock came and went, then 6. By 7, I started calling. Straight to voicemail. I texted. No response. The little blue check marks showed he'd read them, but there was just silence. By midnight, I was frantic. A raw, gnawing panic was clawing its way up my throat. I was spamming his phone. "Where are you? Please just tell me you're safe. Liam, please." I messaged his friends. I even called the pharmacy, but they said he'd left right on time. I almost called the police. I had my phone in my hand, my thumb hovering over the numbers. But something stopped me. A cold, deep certainty. I knew where he wasn't. He wasn't here. With me. His wife. The woman who had suggested bringing another man into their marriage because she was bored. Around 3 in the morning, my phone finally buzzed. My whole body jolted. A single text from Liam. "Need space. I'm safe. Don't call." That was it. 10 years together. And I got 6 words. The next day was a blur of fury and fear. How dare he just disappear like that, over a conversation? But then the panic would set in again. What if something happened to him? What if he never came back? And a small, shameful voice in the back of my head whispered, "Should I call Julian?" I didn't. Even I knew that would be pouring gasoline on the fire. On day 3 of Liam's vanishing act, I heard his key in the lock. I'd been sitting on the couch in the same sweatpants for 2 days, staring at my phone. He looked wrecked, unshaven, red-eyed, still wearing the same clothes from work 3 days ago. "Where have you been?" I demanded, as if I had any right to be the angry one. "Driving." His voice was a raw rasp. "Thinking. I stayed at a motel a few towns over." He sat in the armchair across from me, not next to me on the couch. Bad sign. "Liam, you can't just disappear for 3 days because of one conversation." "One conversation?" He laughed. A short, bitter, humorless sound. "Clara, you asked if your photographer friend could join our marriage. After I've watched you two flirt for months. After you started hiding your phone from me. After you started finding every excuse in the book to bring up his name. Was I that obvious?" "Apparently." "Nothing physical happened," I insisted, my voice weak. "But you wanted it to. Don't lie to me, Clara. Not anymore." I stared at my hands in my lap. "It's complicated." "Actually," he said, standing up, "it's not. I spent 3 days thinking about this, and it's very, very simple. You have feelings for Julian. You want my permission to act on them without losing the comfort and security I provide. You want me to say it's okay so you don't have to feel guilty." Put that way, it sounded ugly, clinical, awful. "That's not—" "I'm going to ask you one more time," he said, his voice dangerously level. "And I need the absolute truth. Do you love him?" The question hung in the air between us, shimmering with menace. I could lie. I should lie. Say no. Of course not. It was a stupid fantasy. Instead, I whispered the truth. My truth. "I love you both." Liam nodded slowly. Not in agreement. In confirmation. Like a scientist whose hypothesis had just been proven correct. Then he walked to our bedroom. I heard drawers opening. The closet door sliding. He returned with a duffel bag at his side. "What are you doing?" My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from far away. "I'm going to stay with my brother in Austin for a while," he said. "I need to figure out what I want." "Don't leave," I said, the panic finally breaking through, real and sharp. "Please, we can talk about this. We can just forget the whole thing. It was a stupid idea." Liam looked at me, and his eyes were filled with such profound sadness that it almost broke me. "That's the problem, Clara. We can't forget it. You can't feel what you feel for him. And I can't unhear what you said to me." He turned to leave. Desperation clawed at me. Remember what we promised? I cried out. Before we got married, we made 2 rules: no cheating and no divorce. Those were our only rules. He paused at the door, his hand on the knob. Funny, he said, his back still to me. How you remember the second rule, but seem to have forgotten the first. I didn't cheat on you. He turned his head just slightly. Didn't you? He asked, his voice a ghost. And then he closed the door behind him. I collapsed on the floor. My phone lit up on the coffee table. 50 unanswered texts to Liam glowing on the screen. And one new message. From Julian. Hey, stranger. Haven't heard from you in a while. Drink soon? I picked up my phone and threw it across the room. It shattered against the wall. 2 weeks passed. The only word from Liam was a terse text confirming he'd made it to Austin safely. The silence in our apartment was deafening. I called out sick from the gallery so many times they stopped asking when I'd be back. Most days, I just shuffled from room to room in our empty, quiet home, replaying everything, trying to pinpoint the exact moment it all went so wrong. It wasn't fair. That's what I kept telling myself. I hadn't actually done anything. Having feelings isn't a crime. Being honest about those feelings. That should count for something, right? I was trying to do the ethical thing, bringing it to him instead of sneaking around behind his back. Liam was acting like I'd already betrayed him, when all I had done was start a conversation. I tried explaining this to my sister, Maya, during one of her worried check-in calls. Even she sounded skeptical. Clara, she said, her voice gentle but firm. Reverse it. How would you feel if Liam came to you and said he wanted to bring some woman he used to know into your marriage? That's completely different, I snapped. How? She asked. I couldn't quite articulate why. It just was. I wasn't trying to replace Liam. I just wanted more. Was that so terrible? After 3 weeks of suffocating silence from Liam, I finally broke down and texted Julian. I kept it casual. Hey, been dealing with some personal stuff. Could really use a friend right now. His response wasn't what I expected. Heard you and Liam are having issues. Probably best if we keep our distance for a bit. My stomach turned to ice. Heard from who? I typed back, my fingers trembling. No response. Was Liam talking to him? Were our friends all gossiping about us? The humiliation burned worse than the rejection. I scrolled through Liam's social media, desperate for clues. Nothing new from him. But I saw something worse. On his older photos, our mutual friends had started leaving comments. Little hearts, supportive messages. Hang in there, man. We love you. Call if you need anything. No one was sending me those messages. I tried calling one of our couple friends. Sarah, she answered, but she sounded uncomfortable. Stiff. Yes, she'd heard something was going on. No, she didn't want to take sides. Yes, she had spoken to Liam. No, she couldn't really talk right now. She was just heading out. The walls were closing in. Everyone knew. Everyone was judging me. And worst of all, Julian, the entire reason for this catastrophic mess, had basically told me to get lost. That night, fueled by cheap wine and a profound sense of self-pity, I did something I'm not proud of. I texted Liam. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I miss you. Please come home. In the sober, gray light of morning, I regretted it. Not because it wasn't true, I did miss him. Desperately, but because it felt like surrender. Like admitting I was wrong, when a part of me still wasn't convinced that I was. My phone remained silent all day. Then, just as I was drifting off into a restless sleep, a reply finally came through. I miss you too, but I don't know how to come back from this. Those words gave me a sliver of hope and crushed me at the same time. He still cared, but he didn't see a way forward. I spent the next few days crafting the perfect response, something that would fix everything without me having to grovel too much. I settled on, we can work through anything together. What we have is worth fighting for. I hit send. Then I waited. Days passed. My sister brought me groceries because I couldn't face the supermarket, couldn't face the imagined whispers. I started to realize just how much of my life was actually Liam's life. Our friends were his friends first. Our routines were built around his stable schedule. Even our apartment, filled with the solid, sensible furniture he'd chosen, felt more like his space than mine. Without Liam, who was I? And without Julian, who still wasn't answering my increasingly desperate texts, what had this all been for? The awful, terrifying truth began to dawn on me. I had gambled my entire life on a fantasy, and I was about to lose everything. A month after he left, Liam texted. He was flying back to Chicago for a day to pick up more of his things. My heart leaped into my throat. This was it. This was my chance. I spent the entire day in a frenzy. I cleaned the apartment until it gleamed. I went to the market and bought all the ingredients for his favorite meal, the short ribs that had been sitting on the table during our fateful conversation. I did my hair. I put on makeup for the first time in weeks. If he could just see me. If he could just remember what we had. Surely, he would reconsider. The Liam who walked through our door was not the man who had left. He looked better, healthier, rested. He'd gotten a haircut. The Texas sun had given him a bit of color. He'd lost the weary tension he always carried in his shoulders. Austin, apparently, agreed with him. You look good, I said, trying to sound casual, not like a drowning woman clinging to a raft. Thanks, he replied, his eyes not quite meeting mine. He was holding an empty suitcase. I can't stay long. I made dinner, I said, gesturing toward the kitchen. I thought we could talk. He hesitated. A long, painful pause. Liam, please, I begged. Just dinner. That's all. He agreed, reluctantly. We sat at the same dining table. It felt like a stage set for a tragedy. I poured him wine he didn't drink and served him food he barely touched. I've been doing a lot of thinking, I began, my carefully rehearsed speech ready. What I suggested, it was a mistake, a fantasy. I was confused, but I'm not anymore. I want our marriage. Just us. He looked at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. And Julian? Ancient history, I lied, forcing a dismissive laugh. I haven't even spoken to him. That part, at least, was technically true. He hadn't returned my calls. Interesting, Liam said, his voice dangerously soft, because he called me last week. The short ribs turned to cement in my stomach. What? He wanted to apologize, Liam continued. His eyes locked on mine. Said you'd been texting him constantly since I left. Said you told him that I was completely on board with the three of us being together, but that you needed him to convince me directly. My face burned with a heat so intense I thought I might pass out. That's not I didn't. He showed me the texts. Clara. Silence. Absolute. Crushing silence. Broken only by the tick-tock of the kitchen clock. Each second a hammer blow. I was desperate, I finally whispered. I was just trying anything to fix this. By lying? By lying to both of us? Liam pushed his plate away, the food untouched. I came here today with divorce papers in my briefcase. I was going to ask you to look them over. Give you time to find a lawyer. Tears sprang to my eyes. Hot and shameful. Liam. No. I do. But now, he continued, his voice cold and steady. I'm not even sure we need to drag this out. He stood up. I'll have my lawyer send them to you. I think it's better if we don't see each other again. I followed him to the bedroom as he efficiently packed another suitcase. This couldn't be happening. Not like this. What about our rules? I pleaded, my voice cracking. No divorce, remember? We promised. He zipped the suitcase closed with a sharp, final sound. You also promised to forsake all others, if I recall correctly. I didn't cheat on you. You cheated in your heart, Clara, he said, turning to face me. His eyes were clear of sadness now. They were just empty. You lied. You manipulated. You tried to change the fundamental rules of our marriage without my consent. And now you're still lying, even when confronted with proof. He walked toward the front door. Panic, raw and primal, seized me. You can't just throw away 10 years. You can't just stop loving someone. He paused, his hand on the doorknob. That's the thing, he said, his voice quiet but devastating. I didn't stop loving you. He turned to look at me one last time. You stopped loving just me. And the door closed behind him with a terrible finality. That night, through a storm of tears and rage, I did the unthinkable. I posted a vague, self-pitying status on Facebook. Sometimes people show you their true colors. Sometimes love just isn't enough. I tagged him in it. Within an hour, I had lost 20 friends. By morning, I realized Liam had blocked me entirely. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. It was quick and clean. I didn't contest anything. I couldn't bear the thought of dragging it out, of having everyone know even more of our personal business. Liam was surprisingly generous in the settlement. He let me keep the apartment, which I could no longer afford on my own. I had to sell it 3 months later. I moved into a one-bedroom rental that echoed with my failures. Meanwhile, through the grapevine of mutual acquaintances I couldn't quite shake, I heard things. Liam had gotten a promotion. He'd moved permanently to the company's Austin headquarters. And Julian? Unsurprisingly, he had vanished from my life like a ghost. The last I heard, he'd taken a job in another state. He never once reached out, not a text, not a call, to see if I was okay after the world had imploded. My sister Maya was the only person who still called regularly, though even she was growing tired of my refusal to accept responsibility. "You need therapy, Clara," she'd say. "You need to understand your part in this." But what was there to understand? I'd wanted something, been honest about it, and everyone had abandoned me. If anything, I was the victim. Wasn't I? The holiday party at my new job changed everything. I'd been there about a year, finally starting to rebuild some small semblance of a life. The company culture was big on spouses attending events, and I'd managed to dodge questions about my relationship status until then. But that night, as I stood alone by the dessert table, my boss approached with his wife and another couple. "Clara, I don't think you've met our new regional director. He just transferred up from our Austin office." I turned, a plastic party smile plastered on my face, and I froze. Liam stood there. His arm was wrapped protectively around a petite brunette, who was looking up at him with pure, undisguised adoration. "We've met," Liam said smoothly. His voice was calm, professional. Not a trace of emotion betrayed our history. "Nice to see you, Clara." The brunette, his new wife, I would later learn smiled warmly and extended her hand. "I'm Hannah. It's so nice to meet you." Liam never mentioned knowing anyone from the Chicago office. What a small world. Ender 7. I mumbled something. Something appropriate, I hope. Then I excused myself and spent the next 20 minutes locked in a bathroom stall, hyperventilating. Liam was my boss's boss. Liam was happily remarried. Liam looked better than he ever had with me. And I was still single, still struggling, still stuck. Over the following months, I was forced to watch from the periphery as Liam thrived. Hannah was universally adored. They bought a beautiful house in the suburbs. He received another promotion, one that required me to occasionally report directly to him. Our interactions were always professional, always distant. It was as if we were strangers, as if we had never shared a bed, a home, a life. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I applied for a transfer to our Seattle office, as far away as I could get. The transfer was approved almost immediately. By him, of course. His final email was brief and clinical. "Request granted. Best wishes for your future endeavors." As I packed up my apartment for the second time in 2 years, I found our old wedding album buried in a box I'd never fully unpacked. I flipped through it, a ghost visiting her own past. I barely recognized the smiling woman in the white dress. She looked so happy, so certain, so completely unaware of how thoroughly she would destroy her own life. My phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Call me when you're settled in Seattle. Maybe this fresh start is exactly what you need." A fresh start. As if I could outrun myself. As if Liam hadn't already shown me what a real fresh start looked like. One built on actual growth and happiness, not just a change of scenery. The truth I still couldn't fully admit, even to myself, was that I had everything. I had a good man who loved me. I had a stable, beautiful life. And I threw it all away for a cheap thrill. For a fantasy that never even existed. Liam had moved on. Julian had never cared. And here I was, alone, about to start over in a city where I knew no one, haunted by the ghost of the man who was thriving without me. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I still catch myself wondering, what if I'd never sent that first text to Julian? What if I'd never read that stupid article? What if I'd never asked that one simple, devastating question? What if I had just been happy with the good man who loved me? What if I had recognized the value of what I had, before I tested its limits, and found them unbreakable? But those questions, like so many others, always come too late to matter.